What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Logician Tim Learns with me, your host, Logician Tim. This is the show where you get to watch me go from a total gaming newbie to a more informed gaming newbie. How about that? What is up, Angela, over there on Facebook? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, we got a new one for you tonight. Well, it's new to me, but it's an old game. So it's like I'm going to be looking at this this game almost as old as I am for the very first time, and I think that's pretty cool. So what I'm talking about is, how did this pop out there? Get that back in there. Here we go. We're talking about RuneQuest, and this game has been around for a long, long time, since 1978, as a matter of fact, almost as old as I am. And I get to dive into it for the first time. And I've heard about this game for a long, long time, but I've never played it. I've never dived into it. So I figured, yeah, let's do that. And Scott actually he had an old copy, or not an old copy. He had a copy of this, and then he ordered some new kit or something, and they sent him this one. And so I actually get to keep this one because he already had a copy of it. And so, yay, I get my own copy of RuneQuest, guys. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I guess some of the first questions, anybody out there, have you played RuneQuest? Have you heard of it before? Do you know anything about it? I'm always kind of afraid to dive into some of these really old RPGs, the really beloved RPGs like RuneQuest and like D&D, because so many people know so much about them. I'm almost afraid I'm going to mess something up, or like say I don't like something that somebody else loves. And I guess I really shouldn't care about that because, it's just my opinion. But, I'm going to do my best to do it justice and give it the time that it deserves. Because this is a really, it's kind of stood the test of time, right? And so they've had tons of updates with this and gotten tons of feedback. And so I'm assuming it would have, have those improvements over the years. So let's take a look and see what's going on. So let's first, I guess, talk about a little bit, where can you find it? Jesse Durney over there in Misfits of Tabletop on Facebook. How you doing, my dude? Good to see you. Good to see you. Let's find out where you can buy this. And I found a few different places. Now on Amazon.com, you can order this for $60. It does have $15 shipping. Okay, so it did not look like this was part of like your Amazon Prime or anything like that I could see. So $60 plus $15 shipping. Now, if you go to their website, which is chaosium.com, if you just type in RuneQuest, it's gonna come up. I think it's the first thing, and you can see it's here for $55 plus shipping. So there you go. There's you can also buy. They have tons and tons of expansions and all types of world books, and I mean it goes on forever and ever and ever. So this is one of those ones that you can really spend a lot of money and get this whole like gigantic collection here if you want to. So I mean, they have this huge set for $119. I have this leatherette slipcase set for $219. Looks pretty sharp. But just the hard book, it's hardback book itself is $55. So that's not too bad. And if you go to Drive-Thru RPG, you can actually get the PDF just for $28. So you can download the PDF for $28 right there on RPG.net, Drive-Thru RPG. I'll get it right one of these times, guys, I swear. So yeah, Drive-Thru RPG, you can get it for $28 for the PDF. So there you go. Jesse, passing along that popcorn. Appreciate it, my dude. So yeah, that's kind of where you can find it. I'm sure there's probably other places. It's been around forever. I've seen it at just about every convention that I've been to. They usually have tons of books laying out, and some of them are kind of hard to find, I guess. So yeah, whenever you're walking around the conventions, I always look at the RPG section because you can find a lot of stuff for like good buys or stuff that's out of print and almost impossible to find. And especially if you go up there on the last day, you can find some really, really good deals because people don't want to ship these really heavy books back, right? And so sometimes they're willing to give you a deal on stuff. So yeah, just think about that when you're going to cons. Find the good stuff. So, let me dive into this. Let me minimize this so I can get my chat and everything back up. All right. So the book I have, like I said, is the hardback version, and it is stout. It is really stout. It's 445 pages. I mean, that's a huge book, you guys. And it is just really full of really cool artwork and charts and, spells and all types of coolness and that you would expect from an RPG of this age and of this stature. So the art, like on the cover and on the back of the book, is really cool. It has like you can see it's kind of like this up close of the sword and the font and stuff like that. It's got an old school vibe to it, but it still looks modern and up to date at the same time. So it feels like there's history there, but it doesn't look like it's 40 years old, right? And I think that's kind of important now, because some of the stuff they flash back, they try to keep those roots, to their age, like so close that they don't want to change a lot. And I think it should be updated with new art, but also, you want to kind of tip your hat to the people of yesteryear and the style of art and things like that. So I think they do a really good job of that from what I've seen so far. Joe over on YouTube. Hello, Logician Tim and Misfits. What is up, Joe? Good to see you, my dude. And Angela. Yeah, I saw you earlier. So yeah, I really like the artwork. It looks really good. Now, flipping through the book, I did see that the pages have a satin finish to them. So if you see, there's not a lot of glare on that, and that makes me like super happy. Now, on the pages that have full page art, and I can't tell if it's if it's just the ink on the page, but they look a little bit shinier, just the pages that have full page art than the regular text pages do. So I don't know if it's just the ink or what, but it makes here's one, this page right here just seems a little bit shinier over here, but that glossy page really makes that art, just kind of pop out, and the colors are really vibrant, right? And then on the other page right next to it, you don't have that high gloss finish. It's really satin, making it very, very easy for my eyes to read. Because, if you think about like fighting glare all day when you're reading an RPG book, 100, 150 pages, and you're fighting glare no matter which way you turn, it's just exhausting. It really is. And so I'm so happy to see that they kind of did both. They kind of gave a little bit of shine to the pages that had that had nothing but art on it. And then on the rest of the pages, they have that kind of satin finish that makes it super easy to read. And I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So let's see here. Now let's kind of get into the book a little bit. So we start off, they have these beautiful maps for us. I guess this world sounds like pretty huge. And I'm assuming over the years, it's probably gotten bigger and bigger. And so they have these maps for us, and that's cool. And I know there's, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think this one had had like an encyclopedia type thing with it that had with the world. If that's the one, but that could have been GURPS too that we were looking at PAX U. So I don't remember exactly. It might have been this one. It might have been GURPS that had like an encyclopedia of the world and the different things you find in the world. I think it was 2 books, and Scott ended up picking up, which is pretty cool. So yeah, they start off showing us some really cool art. It's really dark. So it's not just this screen. It's just a really dark image where you have these kind of explorers, these adventurers back here, like holding a light in the background and, kind of exploring. And then you have this like demon guy. You can barely make him out. Even like looking at the book in real life, barely make him out. Just like these eyes and mean looking teeth. Like, holy crap, this is a bad guy. And all the adventurers have their back to him. Like they don't know that he's there. Like it's just, yeah, I like it. I dig it. So yeah, cool stuff. But they kind of start us off just a little bit of a history lesson in the book, and kind of what is RuneQuest. And RuneQuest, like I said earlier, it's one of those RPGs that I've heard of or heard about for a long time, but I've just never gotten the chance to really look into it. It first came around in 1978, and it was the first RPG published by this company called the Chaosium. So if you spell chaos and then put IUM on the back of it, Chaosium. And so this was like this 3-person little company back in 1978 with in San Francisco Bay Area in California, and they made this their first RPG. And so back then RPGs were pretty new to the scene, right? And RuneQuest just kind of took the world of role playing by surprise because it was very different than other games out at that time. Like there was no leveling, there's no experience points, there's no classes, and there's very few restrictions on how weapons and spells can be used by the players. And so if you think like in D&D world, well, I'm a mage, so I can't use a sword or a shield. For example, and I don't know if that's the case. I haven't played D&D, but I'm just saying, I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. But in this game, it seems like they don't have those type of restrictions. So I'm kind of interested to see what those restrictions or lack of restrictions are in this book, because I'm one of those people that, kind of believe, if I'm playing a wizard or a mage, and if I pick up a sword and swing at somebody with it, I can at least attempt that, right? And I might not hit them as hard or as accurately as a fighter, but I still would have the capability of picking up that sword and swinging it. And it seems like, I guess, some games apparently out there don't even allow you to pick them up. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how they do that in this game. So, all right. So the world that RuneQuest takes place in is called, I'm hoping I'm going to say this right, Glorantha. So Glorantha, Glorantha. All right. And so it's a Bronze Age world where people, they align themselves with their tribe or their city and also their cult. Okay. So humans are the dominant species of this world, but they say it's really only because the elder races, which kind of rule a lot of the places, they keep on fighting with each other. So they kind of allow the humans to take over and be the dominant race or dominant species, right? Because they're just too busy fighting each other and killing off their own numbers. So in Glorantha, though, religion plays a big part of everyday life. Okay, so there's gods and goddesses, and in this world, they're very real to the inhabitants of this world. And there's like a bunch of them. There's tons of gods, and they kind of list some of these. There's the sun, earth, air, water, darkness, the moon. They all have powerful gods that are associated with them. And there's also gods of death and fertility, change, stasis, illusion, truth, disorder, harmony, all types of gods out there. And they tell us that there's even lesser deities that are associated with such things like cats and cows, bats, vengeance and volcanoes. And so it's a very religious heavy world. And it just sounds really, really neat to me. And now they have some of these things called runes. And so your characters are kind of tied to these several runes. So like at RuneQuest, right? Runes. So these runes they're created by the gods, and your characters can kind of join cults of these gods and gain new magical abilities. It's going to make you stronger. And so as you progress in your cult, your connection to the runes are going to grow. And so it's going to gain in strength, and so will your ability. So you're going to get stronger and stronger as you kind of go up the ranks in these cults. And I think that sounds like a lot of fun. So it tells us, what do you need to play? And it's not a D6 dice system like we've been looking at for a long time. It seems like a lot of the ones we've been looking at have been D6 dice systems. They just seem very popular nowadays. This one is not that. This RuneQuest uses a bunch of different dice. They use D20, D10, D8, D6, and D4 dice, okay? So most of the skill checks, they say, so your basic skill checks are going to use a percentile system, just kind of based on a D100 roll. So, but some of the time you're going to be rolling multiple dice to determine things like damage. So, for example, it might say you're going to roll 2D8 plus 1D4. And so what they're wanting you to do is to grab 2D8 dice, right? You're going to roll them, and then you're going to roll 1D4 dice and add them together, and that's going to give you your damage, right? And they're going to have other things like that out there. So you're not going to just be rolling a D10 or a D20. You're going to be rolling kind of a mixture of these things when it calls for it, okay? So just so you know, you're going to be using a bunch of different dice, which some people can find intimidating. I don't necessarily find this so far intimidating. So you finally get to kind of break out that cool set that you bought, a long time ago, and it's collecting dust, and finally get to use your full set of dice. And I just think that's cool. I've been kind of looking for an excuse to buy a really cool dice set, and so maybe this will be it, because I own this book now. RuneQuest is mine. So yeah, I might have to use that as an excuse to buy my own dice. It's gonna be fun. Now, it kind of tells us a little bit about what makes RuneQuest unique, okay? And so first of all, they tell us that combat is dangerous. And because they say if somebody, just comes up and, attacks you with a sword, well, you better be able to, parry or dodge that, or, block it with a shield or another weapon or something like that, because if not, you're going to be in trouble. So they say that humans have a very limited supply of hit points, right? We're kind of fragile, squishy creatures for the most part. And in this game, there's no luck points, there's no hero points or anything like that. And so you're not going to be saved by, hey, I'll just use my luck points. No, there's nothing like that in here. So if you get in over your head, you're probably going to die, right? And so if you run into combat without being prepared, your character is definitely going to die. And even then, they say, it doesn't really matter how skilled or how powerful that your character is. They say disaster is always around the corner, and that combat in RuneQuest should not be taken lightly at all. So something to think about. Don't just run up to people and just, hey, I'll just kill them, because it's, as you'll find out here soon, that might be a very, very bad idea. Something else that is really cool about RuneQuest is that magic is everywhere. And this is why it's not a great idea to just walk up to somebody and try to kill them with a sword, right? Because they could be like super magic, right? And your little sword slash might turn into you just getting wrecked, right? Jason over on Misfits Tabletop Facebook group says, I'm definitely a squishy creature. Yeah, me too. Joe says, me too. Jesse says, RuneQuest has been on my short list of RPGs I want to play soon. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. So hopefully in the next week or so, you'll be able to make a good decision on whether you think it's for you or not as we go through this. So, but yeah, so the thing I think is really neat about this world is, like I said, it's magic is everywhere. Everybody seemingly, just about everybody has magic in this world. And they say magic and religion are kind of like basics to living in Glorantha, and it's accepted by everyone. So you're gonna be using tons of magic. The people you're fighting are gonna be using tons of magic, and you're gonna be worshiping these different gods and maybe different gods from them. Who knows? So because gods, are, like I said, they're real things that they can exert their powers upon this world. It's not like, hey, I'm just worshiping this god and I've never seen them, never seen their power. No, in this world, the gods can exert their power and right on the world, and sometimes on the battlefield as well, as we'll talk about in a minute. Most of the people live here are polytheistic, which means that they serve or they worship many gods. It's not just like one god. There's also like shamanism, philosophical materialism, and mystical illumination, and I'm sure they're going to go into that a little bit more in the book. It says that a person may worship one special god. It's kind of like your main dude, right? You're close with. You have this one relationship with this one god, but you acknowledge that there's a lot of other gods out there, and you may even worship other gods from time to time. So it's not like you're just tied to this one thing. Scott says, watching while I run. Awesome, man. Yeah, get on that treadmill and do some running. Then get outside and do some walking. It's nice out there. So awesome stuff in this book. They kind of go into a little bit about the powers of magic, and I think this is kind of neat because, like I said, everybody just about has magic. Everybody's used to seeing magic. It's kind of commonplace. But fighting, and using magic in combat in this world, it can really change the tides of the battle very quickly, right? So they talk about like priests can cast like bolts of lightning down, or they can call down, flames down from the heavens. Shamans can cast or can summon these spirits that can destroy entire regiments of like military soldiers. So it's a really powerful. Some of the magic is extremely powerful, and it's very fantastic. So it talks about. In the battles and things like that, victory doesn't go to the side with the most numbers. It usually goes to the side with the mightiest gods and spirits on their side, right? And so maybe both sides are using magic, but this god is stronger, and so that's the side that's usually going to win. And it kind of talks about like a small band of adventurers, like your group, can take down an entire army as long as you're backed up by these powerful shamans, right? So you can really use this to your advantage. And kind of the same goes for one-on-one fighting as well. So, both fighters are kind of equal skill. Well, of course, the one with the most powerful magic is more than likely going to be the winner. So the book says if you plan on having a combated or a combat-oriented character, then they say it's really smart to join them in the cult of like a war god and get all that really awesome, powerful magic that comes with the joining a cult and being this like awesome war god, right? So you definitely want to look into that. Cults aren't a bad thing in RuneQuest. So join the cult, man. It's cool in here. Join the cult. It's awesome. It definitely is going to make you more powerful. Now they kind of tell us a little bit about some of the role play stuff. This is some more stuff that kind of makes RuneQuest unique. Some of the role play stuff they have in here is kind of interesting as well. They have this thing called what they call rune affinities and passions. And so this is where your character, they kind of develop, they have strong feelings about the world, and they're kind of tied to this ongoing cosmic conflicts of the gods, right? And it kind of changes your character's attitudes and perceptions about the world, right? And so these are represented by what's called these rune affinities and your passions, and they give like these super large bonuses and abilities to your character. Okay, so these passions and these rune affinities, like I said, they're gonna kind of help dictate a lot of the actions that your character should do, right? And so the way I'm reading it is if you're supposed to be against this type of person, then you kind of act in line with that, and that's going to keep your passions and your rune affinities very strong. Now, if you go against what your character's passions and rune affinities are too much or too often, maybe you killed somebody that you weren't supposed to, or maybe you're killing a lot of people that you weren't supposed to, that's against your passion, then those abilities will actually begin to weaken. And so those powers that you gain from those are going to become less and less. And so that kind of gives you some incentive to role play your character that's in alignment with their passions and rune affinities, right? And it kind of talks about if you don't have deep passions for the world or these strong rune affinities, then you're going to be really weak, and you're going to be at a huge disadvantage compared to other people that have those deep passions, right? Because your magic's going to be nowhere near as strong. So you really want to focus on that and kind of early on start practicing role playing. What's in a line with your character's passions and rune affinities, right? I just thought that was kind of a cool way to encourage players to role play their character, or play their character, not really role play, but play their character in a fashion that is in line with what their character would do, right? Not that I want to do this because I think it's funny necessarily. It kind of gives you a reason not to do that, not to do something that's against your character's alignment, right? So I thought that was cool. Jesse says, there's free Kool-Aid. Yeah, if you join the cult, there's free Kool-Aid, my dude. Yeah, absolutely. Then they kind of go into cults a little bit deeper. They talk about your cult being one of your most valuable resources. And so it allows you to communicate with the gods. So it's kind of like a community along with a religion, kind of all mixed in one, right? And so being a member of a cult is going to gain you access to some of that deity's power. Okay, so I don't know if you've got this fire god that you're in a cult with, then you're going to gain some of the powers of that fire god, right? And they call it rune magic, is the type of when you kind of get some of that power from your cult. It's called rune magic, and the cult's also going to teach you this other type of magic called spirit magic, which is a little bit less powerful magic, but they say it's still useful and still useful to know, right? And so in return, so the cult's giving me the stuff, what do I have to give to my cult? Well, in return, they say that the member, you're going to support the cult with some sacrifices and with your worship and with your loyalty, okay? So if somebody comes against your cult or some group comes against your cult, well, they're going to depend on your loyalty to help defend them, right? And so basically the cult is going to give you support for your way of life. And as you advance in that cult, then you're going to gain more and more magical powers and abilities and resources. And also it sounds like it's going to be kind of a source of adventures as well. Like I said, if your cult kind of declares war against another cult, well, you're going to be probably expected to join in, right? Or somebody else attacks your cult, you're going to be expected to join in and help defend it as well. So it sounds like it's going to be, kind of fun with these different cults and these almost acting as factions. So it sounds pretty cool. Now, besides your cult, of course, you're going to have your family and, maybe a clan or maybe you're just going to be lonely and isolated, right? But most of the time you're going to have some type of family. You're going to have your parents are usually still living, or your siblings or children or your spouse or whatever. And you're going to belong to usually a larger kinship, what they call a clan. And so basically your kin are going to support you against your enemies. They're going to offer ransoms if you were to get kidnapped. They might avenge your death, if you were to die. So your kin is going to support you and be the basis for, more basis for your role-playing game and your adventures, right? So, and this is what's cool, and this kind of plays into it, this next part, when they start talking about the passage of time. And I thought this was kind of cool. And this makes kinship, your family, be a little bit more important, is the idea of time. They tell us that time passes by very quickly in RuneQuest. And they make the assumption basically that a season is going to pass each time you do an adventure. So, usually when you sit down and play, you're usually going to finish an adventure, during that one session, gaming session, for the most part, right? And so they say if you play once a week, and after about a month of playing, well, inside the game of RuneQuest and Glorantha, a full year of time will have passed in just 1 month of real lifetime, right? And so when you kind of extrapolate on that, after a year of gaming in real life, right? So you've been playing the game for a year in real life, your characters, they're going to be, like 10 years old, 10 years older, or maybe a full generation has even passed, right? And so this just sounds so awesome to me, because I can see role-playing my character just kind of knowing that I'm getting older and maybe weaker, and maybe I need to start taking time to train like a protege or something like that to take my place. So it seems like a lot of fun where, I'm playing this father or whatever, and I start training my daughter up in the ways of this magic and the cult and this way of fighting and the morals and all the things. And then maybe I get killed, and then my daughter comes along, and maybe I pick up and I start playing my daughter as a character, and the goal is to avenge my father's death. And I just think it seems like that sounds like a ton of fun, with endless amounts of stories that's just going to literally go down the generation and make you want to like leave a legacy inside of the game. And I just think that sounds awesome. I haven't really seen that before in an RPG where they have the time kind of set up this way. And that just really makes me want to leave a legacy. It's, change the world in some way, make it better, or train people up and pass on what I know to other people. I just think it sounds awesome. So, anyways, it kind of talks about the Bronze Age. So, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. Glorantha is set in an ancient world, and they even say it could be even prehistory. And it's in a Bronze Age because bronze is basically the primary metal instead of iron. It's always a weirdest word to say, iron. But anyway, bronze is the primary metal. And so it makes those people who wear like the bronze armor not only very well protected, but kind of a status symbol, right? To show off to others as well. Because if you can imagine somebody walking through the city with this, brightly polished bronze suit of armor, then they're going to look pretty darn sharp. Like Game of Thrones kind of comes to mind there a little bit, right? Now in this world, the rulers, they tell us, are, it's kind of like your basic king and queen or a chieftain or something like that, some other supreme authority. It says that they're usually priests as well, and that kind of makes sense to me because, priest kings are going to be the norm because temples really are the source of, the gods' awesome powers. And so the powers of these gods, they can use it to destroy their enemies with. And so, of course, the priests are going to have access to most of the power and take over any non-priest pretty quickly, I would assume. So yeah, that's the type of thing that you can expect in there. And then finally, the last thing they talk about is the world of Glorantha is very magical and fantastic. And so when you're making your campaigns and you're playing inside that world, I say keep it fantastic. And what they mean by that is just think very large scale, right? Because there's demigods who are insanely powerful in this world, and they can transform battlefields in ways that that have no equivalent to like our own ancient world warfare, right? So like back in the Roman days, we wouldn't be thinking about these gods, literally just destroying this whole army in one swoop. But in this world, they do, right? They talk about this place called the Lunar Empire. They have these crazy magical weapons. One of them is called the Flying Chaos Demon, and it eats entire armies, right? I guess that's what it has for breakfast. I don't know. But so yeah, it's just tons of stuff. They have units of magicians who call down these comets down on their enemies, right? So it's super powerful. There's sleeping dragons that they say are many kilometers long that are been asleep for a long time, and people kind of have mistaken them for for hills or ridge lines for years and generations even. They said that there's talking ducks and baboons. There's flying bulls. There's sentient fish. There's numerous immortal beings and races in this world. And so when you're playing RuneQuest, they say really to let your imagination just go wild, right? Ignore all the rational thought that you have and draw upon your unconscious fantasies. Draw upon your own dreams, the folklore that you've heard of, and all this mythology that you kind of may have thought of or studied at some point. Use that to make Glorantha even more fantastic, because they say pretty much anything could happen here. And just to me, this was their intro section, and this just sounds like an awesome intro to me. Somebody that's never heard of the world, and in just a few pages, I was able to kind of understand a little bit about the mechanics, a little bit about the history, a little bit about the people, the gods, how powerful it is, what magic is like. And I learned all of that just in a few pages, which really just immerses me into the world right away. And I can't wait to read more. So, and I think I've said this a lot, and if anybody's an RPG maker out there, this is super important because reading a book is a commitment, right? And it's kind of work, right? It can be. And so if you open up the book and you just start reading rules, well, what's my incentive to read those rules, right? Why do I want to go through all this work of reading through all this crap? Is it going to be fun, right? Do I care about what's in this world? And so first, this is the way to do it. You have to get the reader involved in the world first, quickly, right? And succinctly, and tell them a little bit about each piece, to kind of wet their whistle and let them know it's going to be worth it to keep reading, right? And read through some of those dry rules and some of the skills and attributes. Why do I even care? Well, now I actually care because I'm invested in this world, right? And I can't wait to play in it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my first impressions. I really, really dig it. I can see why it's a popular RPG. I can see why that it's been out for 41 years now. It's really, really neat. So next time I'm going to be going over, I'm going to dig into the real first chapter of the book, talking a little bit about the world of Glorantha a little bit deeper. I'll have to see how deep I'm going to go into the lore. I want to kind of tell you guys just enough to kind of let you know what's going on without kind of reading the book to you. But it's kind of a short section. But then they have an adventure section, adventurers section, because they call like your character or your players, they call them adventurers. And so this is kind of like the character creation section. And so we might end up going into that a little bit on Friday. I don't know. It just kind of depends on how much of the world I get to or not. We might just stick to the whole to the world part a little bit on Friday and then get to this on Monday. But I'm really looking forward to this book. And they've really sold me on reading it now. So, yeah, I'm excited. That's it for me tonight. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you don't mind, give me a like on Facebook, Twitch, wherever you're watching this, YouTube. Share the video. That always helps me out. Tell your friends, bring your family, whatever. You know the deal. You know the deal. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. If you have any questions or comments, throw them down into the chat or in the comments. I'll check them later. I get notified, so I'm usually pretty quick on that. Anyways, that's it for me tonight, you all. We will see you all on Friday. Bye.